Hey guys, welcome out to the shop today. We're going to be working on my Cub Cadet mower. I've had this thing for almost 4 years now. It has worked good. It's a 2004 Cub Cadet mower. I bought it for 400 bucks and had to replace just a couple things on like the mowing deck. And ever since then it has worked really good. Had to replace that tire on that side. We'll be replacing this one this year at some point. I just keep on pumping it back up when I need it. Recently though, however, it's started bogging down on me and losing RPMs big time. And I started looking into it, and we're losing oil out of the engine, out of one of the gasket areas. So what we're going to be doing today is pulling the entire motor off and pretty much doing a rebuild on the motor just to kind of get it fresh. It's 20 years old pretty much. Giving it a rebuild won't be a bad thing. The rebuild kit was fairly okay. So I bought 3 oil filters off Amazon that are Briggs & Stratton. Then I went ahead and purchased a box full of fuel filters. That way I could replace them whenever I needed. And I had extra. It's always better to buy them in bulk, and it's cheaper that way. And then the rebuild kit was right here. So this is the main gasket that I think is leaking, your crankcase gasket. And then you have a bunch of other smaller ones that are going to be throughout the engine. So we're going to go ahead and take this apart, break down the engine, and try to get whatever replaced. But I mainly need this one done. So I have not ever taken this apart. It'll be just like any ordinary puzzle. You got to take everything off that's attached to the actual mower, and then you can pull the actual engine out. So we're just going to work pretty much on getting all the extra pieces off, like the throttle cable, choke cable, exhaust pipe, fuel items off, so that we can leave as much attached to the mower as possible. And then we will go ahead and get the whole thing off and then start breaking it off or down from the top to the bottom until we get to that one gasket that I need to get replaced, and then we should be good. All right, to get the throttle and the choke cables out, you just gotta have a star nut bit and loosen it up, and then you'll have the freedom to move it. And you pretty much just pull the cable out of the whole entire thing, and then you can work it out of the actual hole. So it broke loose. Now I can maneuver it to get it out, and it's got this little lip on the end that actually hooks it in there. So that's the bend that you're trying to get free. And we'll do the same with this bottom one. So those are free, and now we'll work on the fuel filter and the fuel cable, or the fuel hose. So to get into the fuel hose, we're going to take off the cover, and we got a 3/8 inch socket, and we're just going to pop all these out. We actually may need to get a regular ratchet to do this. Some of them are tucked up in the front. I think you got 4 total holding it. There we go. I can get this one up here. And then we got to take this. You got to take off the top as well. So we got to take this cover off, and to get these off you need a 5/16 inch socket. So I'm taking off the fuel pump as well. You got to undo the spark plug, and we'll you gotta get this cover off and that's on the bottom. It looks like it attaches to. So the fuel pump is free right now, and then I'm gonna get a clamp to put on the hose to pinch it off to make sure we don't start leaking fuel anywhere. Alright, so the fuel hose is detached. We can take that plate off later, and now we'll go ahead and start removing the wiring from the engine as well. All right, so I first went ahead and disconnected the ground terminal on that battery just so we didn't have any electrical issues when maybe we start up. We have to disconnect this section right here, also this, and then we have to disconnect the positive on the starter, which I think you can see right behind the fuel filter. You can see the red cable that's going into the starter. So those couple of cables we need to disconnect, and then we can start actually pulling the motor off. So I finally got the wiring harness all out away from the engine. The one major holdup that I found was that all my wiring was getting pinched behind the starter. So I went ahead and loosened up the starter, so now it's completely loose. And then all the wires just slid out right before or behind it. So I just got this whole bundle. Make sure you know where they go, obviously. Mark what you need to if you can't remember, if you don't have pictures taken. So now I need to go ahead and get the exhaust taken off from right here, and then we can go ahead and get the pulleys all undone from underneath the clutch that's under there. So that is actually right up underneath there. So we need to get the clutch and everything off, and then we can undo the I think there's like 4 or 5 bolts that are holding it onto the actual frame, and we should be able to pull the whole motor right off. Okay, so we got everything off of there that I can see holding it down. Maybe, nope. I got one, oh, the clutch. So I gotta get the wiring for the clutch disconnected real quick before I yank everything out. Alright, so about 30 minutes after trying to get this pulled apart, it's out, it's in my shop. You can see it's pretty dirty. I need to get a better job at like blowing it down afterwards. But this thing is 20 years old almost. It'll be 20 years next year, which is a pretty long time. But I got it out here sitting on the bottom pulleys, and then I have it propped up using a paint can on this side. So we're just gonna go ahead and start disassembling it, breaking it down, cleaning up the parts, and getting it ready for all the new gaskets. We're gonna go ahead and work pretty much from, I guess, the outside. Probably take off the carburetor area, the flywheel, and just keep on breaking it down, keeping parts laid out where they need to be laid out so that nothing gets mixed up. Alright, update. We got the valve covers off, the cylinder heads, and it looks fairly clean. I don't see anything abnormal or burnt. The only thing that I did see was that this cylinder right here was pushing out oil. Whenever I pulled the cover off, the valve cover, there was a lot of oil that came out with it, and then whenever I took the cylinder head off, there was oil sitting in the cylinder. So I don't know if something's wrong with the rings on this side. Maybe we cracked one or broke it. I drained all the oil out of the engine. That's not all of it. But I didn't see any kind of metal flakes or shininess or anything in there. So I don't think we're like scarring any cylinder. The cylinders do look okay. So I don't think that anything is like physically wrong with it or the engine's about to blow up or anything like that. I do wonder why we got oil more on this cylinder than this other one. And I also opened up the package now to kind of see where we're at, what we got. Separated everything so I know what is going to go with what whenever I do replace items. So we're all set there. Now what I'm going to be doing is breaking apart the bottom half of the engine, and then from there we'll take a look at like the crankshaft and everything like that and see what's going on. So we got the engine tore apart from top to bottom. So right here you can see that there's like some gasket material left right there behind, some right there. For the most part it looks like there's just that and this bit. Now I was losing a ton of oil right here out of this spot, so I'm guessing that this gasket right here ended up giving way. You can see it right here as well. There's like a big chunk missing. So I'm guessing that it kind of let loose and eventually just started blowing oil out. I mean, I put oil in, and as soon as I would run it, it would just start spewing out of this section right here. Looks like that's probably the culprit, but everything looks good. It doesn't look shiny. There's no metal shavings. I don't see anything really wrong in the engine at all. So I got the parts washer pulled out. It's been a long time since I've used this, but got some Purple Power degreaser in there, and I'm just trying to let this cycle through right now and mix up the chemicals and the water, and then I'll start throwing some of these parts in here and trying to get them cleaned up a little bit after I knock the dirt off. Alright guys, so I cleaned up the cylinder head and got it as clean as I'm probably going to get this. I'm not going to go into too much detail. You can see there's some dirt still up in there, but I didn't want to take a bunch of time cleaning that up. It's just going to get dirty again, but I did try to clean out the fins as much as possible. I found one that was cracked right there, or bent cracked, but it's still okay. But now I'm starting to put some of this back together. Cleaned up the gasket area. As you can see, it's nice and clean, no residual gaskets. And I'm starting to try to put the crank and the camshaft back into place. So this is your crankshaft, and I need to put the camshaft in. And if you guys don't know, your camshaft has all these little lobes on there, and that's what opens and closes your valves, which are right here. Well, that's what's right here. These are your valves. If I can remember correctly, I'm pretty sure that this is your intake, that's your exhaust. Your exhaust is going to be bigger most of the time, and this is also black, so you can see the difference in those. That's exhaust, or that's intake, exhaust. And so you also have your spark plug hole, and that's what causes all your compression in here and all the combustion effect to take place and moves everything around. So in a nutshell, I mean, that's basics. If you want details, you can always find that stuff online or take a class. But anyway, so now I'm trying to get the timing dialed in, because you have to have the timing very spot on with things. And as you can see a dot on that, and I kept spinning this around looking for a timing mark on the crankshaft, couldn't find one. And then there's this itty bitty mark right there, that itty bitty dot. So that is my timing marks that these are set up for. So I need to go ahead and put in these little parts right here, and then I can put in the camshaft, then the push rods, and then the cylinder heads and everything like that. So we're trying to wrap this up now. I'm just trying to get somewhat cleaned up. This block I'm not going to get too cleaned up because it is filthy. I'll probably just take like a scraper or something to it and scrape most of the gunk off before I reinstall. So I went ahead and got the surface scraped off first, and then I took a little angle grinder with a really very fine sanding disc and just went over the surface just to kind of knock off any burrs or anything that was left over from the previous gasket. So as you can see, it's nice and shiny right in the mating surface. All right, so we got the, I guess you would call this the oil pan of the lawnmower. This is the bottom end. And they have a seal right here that sets in the middle. And we actually had to come through with like a little metal punch, and it sits like this in there. So now I gotta get a socket or something that is that same size, and I'll just put it in there and pop a new seal right back in. This will be for your crankshaft seal, so make sure that you guys replace this if you got the motor torn apart. All right, so we got the pan back on, and as I was putting it on a second ago, I noticed some increased resistance as I was closing it up. And so instead of using the impact driver to keep on kind of running them down, I used actual ratchet. That way, in case I felt any kind of resistance, I could go ahead and stop. And as I was doing so, I heard a pop, and then I started having oil come out of this bottom section right here. So I went ahead and pulled the cover off, and there's a little bar that goes right here. It's like a connecting rod that goes from here up to your camshaft. And what happens is that this end of the bar didn't seat into this star, and it actually popped the star out a little bit. And I took the plate, which is right here, and flattened it back out, but it did bubble it just a hair. And so we ended up having a new ring anyway in our package, and I'm going to go ahead and put this back on, but just to make you aware. All right, guys, so I got the bottom end of the lawnmower engine back together, and I got this handy sheet right here. I just printed off a sheet of paper, laminated it. Has like a whole bunch of information about all the Briggs and engines, or Briggs and Stratton engines. And I had to look here, find my motor, which is in the 400,000 series. And I'm about to tighten down the crankcase, and I just saw that I need to tighten it down to 25 Newton meters. This is a really good sheet to have. It's double side, or is it double? No, it's single sided. I just printed off two, I guess. Put it on both sides. So I always had a visual on stuff. But I keep this handy. I've used this quite a bit, and it helps with the torque specs, crankshaft reject size, and like valve clearances. So if you ever need to redo an engine, I would highly recommend getting a sheet like this. All right, so now that we got the crankcase all put up and tightened down, we're going to go ahead and install the valve covers. And these came with the gaskets as well. It's a great whole little kit that we got. Makes it so much easier to just rebuild everything all at once. Okay guys, so as I showed you before, this is the keyway, or the key, and it broke. And I've broken a couple of them before, so I always keep some in stock now. So yeah, it just rounds it out and ends up splitting it. And they get wedged in the keyway and end up keeping it locked in place. But when I take the flywheels off, it seems like they always fall apart. So I always keep some extras on hand. So I've gotten mostly everything back in place. This I've got to still bolt down tight. Everything went together smoothly. Scraped up some of the oil that was still left in the bottom there, and now I am changing out the fuel filters. I already did the oil filter down there. And when you guys are changing out fuel filters, always look out for an arrow. I don't know if you guys can see that. Slight arrow right there. That's the direction of flow. So we'll actually have to put it in just like that. It's got 2 little clips on there that we'll have to remove. Pop that bad boy in real quick, and then we'll be good on the fuel side. And then we'll actually have this little guy right here. This is the fuel pump, and it'll start sucking fuel up and push it into the carburetor area, and then hopefully it will fire off first thing. So we'll see in just a few minutes. So last but not least, we have to add the oil in, and then double check on all of our gaskets and stuff. I can't remember how much oil this thing takes, so I'm not gonna overdo it. Make it spill out anywhere, making sure everything's closed up. Alright guys, well, I just got done mowing with this thing, and it worked just as it should, just like it used to. And one thing that I was always noticing a lot after I got done mowing is I'd have a lot of oil just kind of sitting over here, and as you can see, I have absolutely none, so that is good. There's no oil leaks on this side where the filter is. There is a little bit right here, but that's from where I put the motor on first without the filter on. So we are back to normal. The next thing, or one thing that I did find out, is that I accidentally forgot to, or I didn't notice, well, you guys can't even see it, but the belt was not on this side pulley after I removed the motor and everything. So I gotta get that belt on that pulley, probably get some new belts, and then I gotta look at my clutch because it hasn't been working really well for a while now, and I'm tired of fighting it and trying to fiddle with it and stuff. So probably gonna go look at that next. Thanks guys for watching and just following along with this video. Hope you guys found it useful. Tearing down the engine completely, getting it all re-gasketed, I guess that's what you would say. We put all new gaskets on there, and it's back to normal running now. It sounds great. I have full control over the RPMs with the throttle, and before I was really losing it. I'd have it full on and it would sound like it was dying, so that's never good. I was able to mow the whole entire yard full on without any problems, and the grass is a little bit taller, so that was a real test. So I got a couple more things I got to work with on the mower, but it's gonna be a different time, not this time. So thanks for following me on this little journey. Hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you guys all watching. Hit that like button, and we'll see you guys on another video.